doc link. All right. Okay. Okay. And I actually have a playlist I want to show people when we start this study that I made a Feast of Trumpets playlist for the YouTube channel so people can look at all of our past studies and other videos pertaining to this topic. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Happy Yom Teruah. Thank you for joining us today. So today we are at the second half of our Yom Teruah for those of us that are following the vernal equinox, the first new moon after the vernal equinox is a beeb for us. So we're now in the seventh month according to that calendar. So today is Yom Teruah for us, and so we'll be doing a Yom Teruah study. Those of you that are current subscribers, this is nothing new to you. You've seen us do Yom Teruah studies for the past couple of years. So those of you that are just tuning in, that maybe haven't seen the YouTube channel, haven't seen our ministry, the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly before, I'll be putting a link for the playlist I've compiled recently of our studies in the past. So anyway, so I'll be linking that in the description of the video. So let's get underway here. I'm gonna get us on the Google Doc here. And so I won't be rehashing old stuff like why we use the silver trumpet. Obviously, that's one of the videos in the playlist, cornet trumpet versus ram's horn. So if you're curious about that, I'll give a quick explanation of why we use the silver trumpet, but I won't be going in depth like that video does. So if you want to know more about that, you can check that video out, and the difference there with the Septuagint. So, all right, come on, Google Docs, you're killing me here. Come on. I don't know why it's doing this. Sane. Oh, okay, it's just taking a while. All right, let me just see here. Let me try to get rid of some old tabs here. Okay, and so, all right. So we got our Feast of Trumpets study. All right, so first we're going to go to pretty much the origin of this feast, and this is known by many of our brothers, sisters give the traditional name to Leviticus 23 as the feast hotspot or the appointed times hotspot. So let's go to Leviticus 23. I will be reading from the Brenton's Septuagint, English translation of the Septuagint here. We'll go into the Greek and Hebrew and show you guys what the words literally mean for trumpet here. Okay, so we're going to start at verse 23 for Leviticus 23. Here we go. It says, "And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Yashar all, saying, In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, the new moon, you shall have a rest, a Sabbath, a memorial of trumpets shall be to you a set-apart gathering." And more accurately, if we look into the Greek here, phrase memorial of trumpets, okay, it's record, memorial, and then you have the word for trumpet here, which we'll get into later in this study, is the same word, mind you, for the silver trumpets in Numbers chapter 10. It is salpix, Salpigx, and it's Strong's number G4536 in the Septuagint. A trumpet. Okay, so it's literally a commemoration of blowing silver trumpets. The reason I know this, if we go to the Masoretic here, okay, and we go to the Hebrew version of this, it says of blowing trumpets, taruah. And let me just put some disclaimer in here. Teruah does not mean a general noise or a human voice. I know that the ISR, they have their little footnotes and that they think it means that, but this is what the Strong says here. Okay, Teruah. H8643. Clamor, that is acclamation of joy or a battle cry, especially, let's not stop there here. This is the same definition here, especially clanor of trumpets as an alarm. Okay, joy, jubilee, loud noise, rejoicing, shouting. So clangor of silver trumpets is part of the definition. So let's keep everything in context here. It's not a general shout or something, because I've seen a lot of people misunderstand the Hebrew word teruah and promote that it doesn't matter what instrument you're using and all that. It does matter. Okay. Anyway, moving on. So verse 24, speak to the children of Yashra. Oh, okay, right. We just read 24. Verse 25, you shall do no servile work, and you shall offer whole burnt offerings to Yahuwah. Moving on to verse 26 here. Oh, no, that's it for verses 24 to 25. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next cross-reference we have here, which is Numbers chapter 10. So mind you, we just looked at the Hebrew and Greek for Leviticus 23. Now we're going to do the same thing from Numbers chapter 10. Okay. Notice the header here in these words, the silver trumpets. Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, make to yourself 2 silver trumpets. The same Greek word there, salpiks. Okay. You shall make them of work. Okay. This obviously has to be talking about a trumpet, not a horn of an animal. And they shall be to you for the purpose of calling the assembly and removing the camps. Now, if we continue here, you shall sound with them, and all the congregation shall be gathered to the door of the tabernacle of witness, the tabernacle in the wilderness. And if they shall sound with one, all the rulers, even the princes of Yasharal, shall come to you, and you shall sound an alarm, and the camps pitched eastward shall begin to move. And you shall sound a second alarm, and the camps pitched southward shall move. And you shall sound a third alarm, and camps pitched westward shall move forward. And you shall sound a fourth alarm, and they shall encamp toward the north shall move forward. They shall sound an alarm at their departure. Whenever you shall gather the assembly, you shall sound, but not an alarm. And the priests, the sons of Aaron, shall sound with trumpets, and it shall be a perpetual ordinance for you throughout your generations. And I think some people try to say here, supposedly trumpet's not there in the Hebrew, but it's there in the Greek, just to let you know. Sal Pinks is there again, G4536. So just FYI, because I've seen some people look at the King James or Strong's or whatever, and one of these verses supposedly doesn't have trumpets, but anyway, it's actually both there in the Hebrew and the Greek of verse 8 there. Okay, Chatzosera, by the way, is the equivalent of the silver trumpets. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Joshua.
I don't know why they'd say it's not in the Masoretic, because it's definitely there. I'm looking at verse 8 and verse 9, and it's got the H2689, which is trumpet or clarion. So they're making a false statement to say that.
Okay, so yeah, so I think I misspoke here. I think their claim is actually the prior verse, my bad. So the prior verse says, you shall gather the assembly, you shall sound, but not an alarm. So I guess their weak argument here is that trumpet's not mentioned. So they try to make a loophole that you can use any instrument or whatever. So, and I've heard that before by different fellowships, which I completely disagree with. But anyway, so verse 10 even has the word you just mentioned, Chatzosera, okay, in the Masoretic. Verse 10 also has it. Okay? And in the days of your gladness and in your feasts and in your new moons, you shall sound with the trumpets, salpinks, Chatzosera, at your whole burnt offerings, and at the sacrifices of your peace offerings, there shall be a memorial for you before your Elohim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Okay. And that's pretty much about it at verse 10. Then it goes to their departing Sinai in verse 11 there. So, by the way, I found something interesting with the Hebrew Roots version notes. They mentioned something earlier when I was looking at Jeremiah earlier this morning. And I I just wonder if there's a difference here. Um, let's see here. It says, growing strength, O sons of Benjamin, from the midst of Jerusalem and in Tekoa, signify by salpinx, trumpet. And over Beth Hakerem lift a sign, for bad things look from the north, and destruction, a great destruction is happening. So basically, this is the context of Babylon coming, destruction from the north. When Yahuwah uses Nebuchadnezzar historically to take, Yehuda because they're acting wicked and all that. So I just found it interesting. The Hebrew Notes version puts footnotes for chapter 6, verse 1 of that book, trumpet, and also verse 17 of that same chapter, which I believe the Masoretic has changed that word. I think, hold on, yeah, shofar. Yeah, not surprising. So either way, I like I said, I would really recommend those that don't understand the difference, and why I believe it's a straw man argument to say shofar means ram's horn. I would recommend you watch the study I did way back called cornet, trumpet versus ram's horn, and that, in my opinion, from what I've looked at all the lexicons and dictionaries, shofar does not mean a horn of an animal. It actually means a cornet. So, FYI, if you're interested, you could check that study out. So, anyway, another disclaimer I wanted to make, and a false doctrine I see permeated really mainly in Christianity, is that only Levites could blow the silver trumpets. That is not the case. I want to go into an instance in the book of Judges here, where clearly a non-Levite and someone that's not even of the house of Judah, like the two kingdoms, someone that's not even from the southern house is blowing a silver trumpet. Okay. And it's not accounted to him as sin to do so. Gideon. This is the story of Gideon here. Okay. So let me see if I can find the exact verse here I'm looking for. It's in Judges 6. Let's see here. See if I can find where it talks about him blowing the trumpet here. City of Joas, your neighbor. All right. Let's see here. I don't know why. For some reason, I always make a mistake with one of these. Let me see here. Gideon was. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So Judges 6:34. All right, yeah, so Judges 6:34. All right. Here we go. And it says, the spirit of Yahuwah came upon Gideon, and he blew with the horn. So most likely this is talking about a cornet. And Eliezer came to help after him. Okay, so Karaz. That's the weird part. All of a sudden it becomes Karaz. But the reason I think this is talking about the silver trumpet, and there's just an error here in the translation, or possibly the Codex Vaticanus somehow got corrupted a little bit in this verse. Because if you look at the word for trumpeted, it's not talking about blowing a cornet. It's actually talking about, this is the root of salpinx, actually, in the word trumpet, like, to sound the trumpet. Salpizo, it means to trumpet. That is sound a blast. The sound, so it's basically the sound of the silver trumpet in the Greek. So I don't know why they changed the word here for horn or trumpet to karaz. I don't know why they did that. That could be just, unfortunately, this Septuagint was translated into Latin as the Codex Vaticanus around 3rd or 4th century AD. at that point, and the Catholic Church could have been monkeying with stuff. So, but anyway, it exposes it. The word before horn literally is Greek word or sounding of the silver trumpet. Like pretty much, it's like the equivalent to the word taruah, pretty much. So anyway, that kind of exposes that false interpretation that this would be a shofar or whatever. So I just wanted to show that it seems very clear in Judges 6:34 that Gideon's allowed to sound a silver trumpet. And it's not just for the Levites. By the way, the chapter we just read in Numbers 10, nowhere does it say that it's only for the Levites, just FYI. So that's mainly a Christian tradition, even Judaism tradition, that mainstream Judaism holds to today. That's only for the Levites, so on and so forth. So anyway, now we're going to go to Psalms 81, 3-5 to show you that this sounding of the silver trumpets definitely was for a law of all 12 tribes of Jacob, not just for Levi. So we're going to go to Psalms 81, 3-5. And I'll be using the Peshitta version, the Aramaic Bible in plain English translation of Psalms here, because I like how it's worded from verse 3-5 here. Call with trumpets at the first of the month or the new moon, and at the full moon on feast days. For this is the law for Yashar, a right ruling for the Alua of Yaakov. So what that's saying is it's a law for all Yashar, not just for Levi. He appointed a witness in Yosef when he went forth to the land of Egypt. He heard a language he did not know. Kind of interesting. I wonder if it's talking about the Egyptian language, or so that's kind of interesting in there. But the point here is verse 4 is really to take away from is that this is a whole law for all of Yahuwah's people, not just the lineage of Aaron. Okay, so I'm going to move on here. All right, Psalms 98, verse 6. Here's another witness here that Yahuwah's only commanded one instrument to be used as what instrument to blow on the Feast of Trumpets, on all of your feasts, and so on and so forth. So Psalms 98, verse 6, and praise with the sound of trumpets before the King Yahuwah. So that's how the Aramaic reads. If we go to the Septuagint, it's a little different, a little bit more specific what type of trumpet is being referred to. It says in the Septuagint of Psalms 98, verse 6, with trumpets of metal and the sound of a trumpet of horn, make a joyful noise before the king. So obviously, trumpets of metal would refer to the silver trumpets. Okay, so moving on here. All right.
What translation are you reading from?
That I just read from was the Brenton's English translation of the Septuagint. That was like pretty basic, like English translation of it. I'm trying to think where you could probably find a free version of it. I think, sis, I'll send you one that you can find on the internet. You actually can download the whole PDF for free, which includes the Apocrypha that was part of his canon, because he actually included the Septuagint always actually included all books of Maccabees, Third Ezra as part of the canon, Bel and the Dragon, and pretty much the standard King James Apocrypha was included in Brenton's translation for the most part, even up to today. Yeah, Brenton's the most common translator, Sir Lancelot Brenton. I'm trying to think of the other people that do it. There's this, I think Sweet is the other guy, Henry Sweet. He's done his own version, but those are like the main two popular ones out there. And so I think the other popular one is the Apostolic Bible Polyglot. That's the one with the Strong's, key to the Strong's that I use a lot. And actually, if we go back to the verse into the Greek here, it literally has salpinx in Psalms 98, verse 6. So you have salpinx actually twice in this verse. Interesting. So very very clear. It's talking about the silver trumpets here. And
Right.
so yep. So yeah, I'll definitely send that to you, sis, so you could check it out for yourself.
Okay.
All right. So the last one we have before our prophetic meaning of this important feast day is Numbers 29, verse 1 to 6. And in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, there shall be to you a set apart gathering. You shall do no servile work. It shall be to you a day of blowing trumpets. And just for fun, let's go to the Greek here. Yeah, a day of signaling. It will be to you. So that's kind of weird. I don't know why the ABP plus deviates from what the Bretons has. It's a little weird. They're almost catering to the Masoretic there. That doesn't make any sense. Most of the versions of Septuagint, they'll say a day of blowing trumpets. This is where the Masoretic gets a little weird. Talks about awakening blast. I don't know. The Sefer translates as awakening blast. Yeah, it's the word here is teruah. So teruah means a clangor of trumpets. So Breton's correct with using the Greek equivalent of teruah there and translating it as blowing trumpets, a day of blowing trumpets. So, that's a point for Breton there. Let's see here. Verse 2, and you shall offer whole burnt offerings for a sweet savor to Yahuwah, 1 calf of the herd, 1 ram, 7 lambs of a year old without blemish. Their grain offering shall be fine flour mingled with oil, 3/10 deals for 1 calf, and 2/10 deals for 1 ram. So then it goes through the whole sacrifices of the Feast of Trumpets. But the main important thing here we go back to is verse 1. It's a day of blowing trumpets, and that's what we're doing today. So also what I thought interesting before we go to the the prophetic implications of this day and how it points to Yahushua's return, I just thought it was interesting to look at the NLT, because even though the NLT uses the Masoretic text, they a lot of the times side with the Septuagint on certain verses. So I find this kind of interesting because for Leviticus 23, they actually agree with our rendering of the Hebrew word teruah, what it means in English. I just find it interesting. It says, for the Festival of Trumpets, verses 23 to 25. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, give the following instructions to the people of Yasharal on the first day of the appointed month. Wow, they really paraphrase this. In early autumn, you are to observe a complete rest. It will be an official day for set apart assembly, a day commemorated with loud blasts of a trumpet. I like that. You must not do any ordinary work or servile work on that day. Instead, you are to present special gifts or offerings to Yahuwah. So I just really like the phrase there, loud blasts of trumpet for teruah. I like that. So yeah, that's the New Living Translations. So they're kind of like the Targums, where they sometimes paraphrase or expand on the meaning of a verse rather than a transliteration. So I kind of like that. Sometimes it helps us understand the meaning of certain Hebrew and Greek words. So yeah, definitely cool. Let me see here. Prophetic meaning. Here we go. So we're first going to go to Paul's reference here of at the last trump is when Messiah returns. And this is really good for those of our brothers and sisters who are still kind of under the deception of the pre-trib. This is a really good verse to use to show them that it is not scriptural at all to believe that he's going to come before the anti-Messiah. Okay. Okay, so I'll even be using a very modern translation here of the Brit Hadashah, the ISV, International Standard Version. Okay, so the header here, the resurrection of the Messiah. Okay, so now if we go down to let's start at verse 50 here. 1 Corinthians 15:50, Mom. I really like how they have footnotes and stuff here in the ISV. Brothers, this is what I mean. Mortal bodies, i.e., flesh and blood, cannot inherit the kingdom of Elua. Very self-explanatory. In our current bodies, we cannot be in the kingdom. And what decays cannot inherit that does not decay. Let me tell you a secret. Not all of us will die. And then he puts in footnotes here, the literal for the Greek there is fall asleep. But all of us will be changed in a moment, faster than an eye can blink. At the sound of the last trumpet, indeed, that trumpet will sound, and then the dead will be raised, never to decay, and we will be changed. So, and obviously what he means by some of us will not be asleep, he's talking about some will actually live through the tribulation that are part of the 144,000.
Right.
That's what Paul's talking about there in verse, I think it's 50 or 51 there. So that's showing that a trumpet is connected, a heavenly trumpet, a heavenly Salpings Chatzosera is connected to his return, the day of his return. Then if we go to another verse from Paul here in his letters, 1 Thessalonians 4:16 so let me see. I like more of a literal verse, a literal word for word for this verse here. Here we go. Because the master himself shall descend from heaven with a word of a command, with a word of a command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet, salpiques of Elua, and the dead in Messiah shall rise first. Then we who are alive and remaining from the tribulation, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the master in the air. Thus we shall always be with the master. So
Where's that verse again?
that is
you just read.
1 Thessalonians chapter 4:16-17.
Okay.
Yep. So, and the interesting thing to point out is, again, the same word for the silver trumpet is used for this spiritual trumpet. I just find that interesting. It's the same exact word there. So we have G4536 Salpiques, which means the silver trumpet. So, and it's kind of interesting because when Yahuwah talked to Masha, at the mountain, he said, make according to the pattern you saw. So he's showing him in heaven what everything looks like. And I would imagine you have silver trumpets in heaven. So it's kind of interesting when you think about it that way. The silver trumpets in Numbers 10 they were commanded to make was a earthly shadow of the heavenly things, you could say. So to me, that's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. So let me see here. So now we're going to Joel chapter 2, verse 1. This is another interesting difference. The Masoretic will have shofar there, but the Septuagint will have the same Greek word as 1 Thessalonians 4. Okay, so let's go to Joel 2:1. It says, trump salpizo with trumpets, or a trumpet, salpinks, in Sion, proclaim in the mountain, proclaim in my set apart mountain, confound all the ones dwelling in the land, for the day of Yahuwah is near. So, really important here. This is one of the important prophetic shadows of this feast, is that the day of Yahuwah kind of follow a blow of a silver trumpet somehow in the land. So that seems to be a very clear sign that his return's at hand. Even though we can't know the day and hour, we can know the season, right? And we're going to get to that. I think I'm going to add that to the prophetic meanings of this day, because I think this is important, because a lot of people use Matthew 24:36, and they're like, no one can know the day and hour, but we can know the season. We're supposed to not be ignorant of the Moedim. Okay, so we're going to look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. What is it, Mom? Verse 1 that Paul starts off in that chapter. You are not ignorant.
Yeah, 5 verse 1.
Of the seasons. And in the Hebrew, the majority of the time where you see the word seasons, especially in the Hebrew Tanakh, it's not referring to summer, winter, fall. It's referring to the Moedim, the appointed times. So in that context, we can understand what Paul's actually talking about here. Okay, so if we go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1, be ready for the day of Yahuwah. I couldn't agree any more with that header of the International Standard Version. All right, now you do not need to have anything written to you about times and dates, brothers. Interesting. For you yourselves know very well that the day of Yahuwah will come like a thief in the night. Now, let's not just stop there. A lot of pre-tribbers want to stop there. Let's keep going here. Let's get the context of what he's talking about. When people say there is peace and security, destruction will strike them as suddenly as labor pains come to a pregnant woman, and they will not be able to escape. However, key verse here. However, brothers, you are not in darkness in order that the day of Yahuwah might surprise you like a thief. So usually what Christianity does is they stop at what, verse 2?
Mm-hmm.
They'll stop at verse 2. They won't go to verse 4. Okay, literally, Paul is telling you, if you are in Messiah, truly in Messiah, if you are keeping yourself spiritually awake, it will not come on you as a thief coming in your house. Paul's using allegorical language here, just FYI. So that's what he's trying to tell you. He's trying to tell you, listen, yeah, there are those that it's like a thief to those that are in darkness, not to us. That's what he's trying to relate here. So anyway, the most important verse of this chapter, in my opinion, is verse 1 that literally says we are to know the times and seasons. We are to know the appointed times. So to me, that's like a big bright light there, you could say. All right, so let's move on here to Matthew 24, verse 31. This is the last one I have that shows that Messiah's return is foreshadowed with the Feast of Trumpets, it seems like. In Matthew 24, verse 31, where it talks about the gathering of his elect from the four winds. It says, and I really like the Peshitta version of this verse, the Aramaic Peshitta of the New Testament says, and he will send his angels with great trumpets, and they will gather his own elect from the four winds, from all the ends of the heavens. This seems to be in the same context, obviously, of we just saw in 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17. This is the 144,000, most likely. This is, it would have to be the first resurrection for this, obviously, because it's when he's returning that this is happening, where the dead in Messiah are in the clouds that he's gathering from the four winds. You got those that are remain, that are alive, that are part of the 144,000. They're all in basically, in the sky that he's gathering together with him. Okay, so just to explain that. Okay, so those are all the scriptures I had offhand. So pretty much I just wanted this today to be a study for those that are not aware of this feast day, those that might want to consider start keeping the Feast of Trumpets, even if you're at the beginning process of Yahuwah calling you out of the Christian church and into his Torah. This feast is very connected to Messiah's return. It seems pretty obvious. And just FYI, traditionally, according to Judean tradition, from what I've heard in the land, kings were always coronated on the Feast of Trumpets. So this is very, very important feast day, because I believe that's the reason he's going to return on trumpets, in my opinion, is because that's when Yahusha will literally become our King of Kings. He will be coronated. He will be, the king in the millennium. He's going to be sitting on a throne on this present earth in the millennium in a physical temple in Jerusalem under a Levitical priesthood. That's all talked about constantly through the prophets. Isaiah, Ezekiel, I think Jeremiah talks about it a little bit.
Ezekiel 44.
Thank you, sis. Ezekiel 44 and I believe 45 also. Zechariah 6.
Yeah. Through 46, actually.
Oh, thank you. 46. So all these references are talking about a future millennium kingdom that Yahushua is the king. He's sitting on the throne. Okay, so I think for us believers in the Messiah, this day is very important. It's very important to focus this day on being joyful, being glad, shouting where our trumpet blasts to Yahuwah as a way to give praise to him and thank him for this wonderful day. So, and just, I know some people don't know what, possibly don't know what the trumpet looks like or anything. So I wanted to kind of give a visual for them. Put mine on camera here and maybe end our study with a loud blast here. So this is what it looks like. It's pretty long. This is a silver plated temple trumpet, it's called. I actually got it from Israel a couple of years ago from the chauffeurman.com. You can also find this. Obviously, I'm not going to encourage you purchasing on a high day or a Sabbath, but when it's not the Sabbath, you can check out christianbook.com. Sometimes they might have it on sale, 20-30% off about. So this is what it looks like. It's got a big, long, wide end to it. And it's got a really long extension here to where the mouthpiece is at the other end. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us for this Feast of Trumpets. Thank you for all of our viewers and listeners, and even our brothers and sisters that might have been tuning in. Thank you, and have a great Yom Teruah, a day of shouting of trumpets. Praise Yahuwah. All right. Shalom, everyone. All right.